Hi everyone, I just wanted to come on here and talk a little bit about why teaching calculus is easier than teaching addition and subtraction. And I know you're probably thinking, did she say that correctly? Is she being serious? Yes, I'm being totally serious. Just going to share a little bit about my experience and where I think we really need to go from here. So, when I first started out in the classroom, I was teaching K through 5 chess and everything was going great, and I decided to become a teacher, and I was like, cool, I'm not sure what kind of teacher, but I want to go into teaching, and an opportunity came up to become a calculus learning assistant. So I thought, cool, let's try this out. Should be fun. And when I got into the classroom, I was actually really surprised because I actually had students that would say to me, Gabrielle, you just don't understand us. This is just so hard. And obviously you never struggled with math because you're teaching now. And so it just must have always been so easy for you. And I had to break the news to them that I actually did not do well in calculus before. I actually failed the course miserably, okay? And it wasn't because of the instructor. I actually felt horrible about it because I felt like I'm letting him down. And I just wasn't ready at that time because I was just missing so many of the core components that I needed to be successful. Okay, and so when I was working with these students in this calculus course, and I had a few sections to work with, I was working with about I think it was 100 students or so. When I was working with them, there were a lot of things that came up that were very similar to when I was working with myself. Okay. And what I came to understand was that a lot of the challenging moments for them, or a lot of the learning blocks that they had, both emotionally and mentally and academically, a lot of those challenges came from when they were in elementary school. And this was a big wake up for me because I was like, wow, here I am teaching calculus in a college course with students that are adults. A lot of them are older than me, right? At this time, I think I was only 22. And I am basically having to reteach a lot of these foundational concepts that I had to teach myself, such as decimals and place value, and really understanding how that works, right? And understanding the slope of a line, and understanding all of these what seems to be simple concepts. And this is really, really, really important. And so that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to pursue elementary education because I want to understand how to teach those foundational skills, because that was a lot more difficult to teach than actually teaching the calculus concepts. Because once we understood the base, the actual calculus concepts were pretty smooth when it came to teaching, okay? So I think students were also surprised at how much easier those ideas came to them when they had a better idea of those foundational pieces. And so this lesson just continued for me when I actually was in a first grade classroom. I got placed there for one of my practicums, and I had to create a lesson on addition and subtraction. And at first I was like, okay, cool, yeah, we can do that. And I was so surprised at how many hours it took me to actually complete this assignment. It took me hours and hours to just understand, how do I get inside their head? How do I, connect this to whatever previous background knowledge they have? I had to figure out which manipulatives I was going to use. I had to figure out how I was going to draw it out, right? I had English as second language learners in my class, so I really had to make sure I was, making the lesson, available for everyone and everyone can understand. I had to have language supports in there, and it was just this whole big deal, right? And I was like, wow, this is really tough. And then I taught the lesson and it went great, but then I still had students that just didn't quite understand what I was trying to do with them. And so I was like, oh man, okay. So I had to go back to the drawing board, and, we eventually went through it. I had to teach a couple more lessons, and eventually everyone was kind of on track, and I was like, okay, awesome. But But this was really big for me, okay? Because it was then that I realized that the simple is challenging to teach, really challenging to teach. And the complexity of challenging topics is actually a lot easier to teach, only if those foundations are set. So how does this apply to education? So like when we're thinking about elementary school, right? We're thinking, okay, cool, like it doesn't seem like kindergarten or first grade could be that difficult to teach, but it actually is really challenging, okay? And something that gets overlooked all the time is the importance of preschool, and why preschool is so important to ensuring that kids are successful, not only in elementary school, but throughout the rest of their lives, right? In their academic careers and whatever they want to do, because that little bit of an edge in the beginning can give them super huge advantage, right, in the long term. And if we want to fast forward this idea to higher education, right, we're looking at entry-level classes for universities and colleges, right? And when we look at where retention efforts are placed, they're most often placed in the first year of a student's academic career. And it's like, okay, well, why is that? Well, if you think about it, well, first of all, 30% of students that actually complete their freshman year drop out after that. And it seems like a lot, and it's pretty shocking, but it's not that surprising because entry-level classes are often the most difficult courses in the major, right? Like, you're literally trying to lay the foundations for this student's academic career. And so, when we're thinking about designing college courses or designing college majors, right, there needs to be a lot of thought placed into the foundational level courses. And I'm not talking like, oh, it's all on one instructor. It kind of needs to be like a team effort across the board. Like, all the professors come together. Like, what needs to really be taught in the basic classes? And a lot of times, right, and this is just from my experience, but a lot of times those foundational level courses set the stage for the upper divisions, but a lot of the upper divisions have more of the really interesting content and the more real-world applications and, all of the linking, right, between the actual content and the real-world applications. And I think we're just kind of trained to say, okay, well, let them learn from the books first, and then we'll expose them to real-world stuff, and then we'll expose them to, hands-on activities and all these different things. And it's actually really important that we kind of reverse that, and we make sure that in the entry-level courses, right, and beginning stages of whatever it is that people are learning, that they're actually getting that hands-on experience and that hands-on application. And even if it's just like, 1 or 2 or 3, that's a lot better than none at all. And I know it's so hard, right? Because in education, we want to do everything all at once, and it's just impossible, which I totally understand. But maybe if we can start asking the question of, how can we understand this from the beginner's point of view? How do we ensure that we are really building a solid foundation in whatever it is that we are trying to teach, right? Like, a lot of times there's a blind spot because the people that are teaching the content, especially in higher ed, they're so far away from what it was like to be first learning the content, right? Like, if someone gets a PhD in something, they're not going to be struggling as much with the initial concepts that are presented in entry-level courses. And that's what was kind of cool about like the Learning Assistant program, because it kind of helped bridge that gap between like content level expert and what it was like to actually, what it's like to be a student in an entry-level course. But maybe these are some of the questions we can start asking, and people need help with this. Like, this is not something that should be all necessarily on one person, right? But it's really important that we set the foundations really strong for our students, and we start thinking about how we can best support them. And that's why I became really passionate about technology, actually, or part of the reason why I became passionate about technology and education, because I really saw the power that technology had to kind of bridge those gaps and really help support students in kind of those like lower level courses, and when they're really starting out in their educational journey, just really helping them build those strong foundations, which will allow them greater success in the future. So if you have any questions or thoughts or ideas, I would love to hear it. And yeah, talk to you soon. Bye.